Warriors Unite! Back with another episode of Figure Warriors 2 and the 1% Club. Hope you guys are doing well this evening. It is a blistering hot in the Midwest. How are you doing? I hope you guys are staying cool wherever you're at. And I wanted to kind of get one done. We didn't get a chance to do one yesterday, but we'll kind of do one today. Hope everything's going well. Thank you guys. Hope you guys are conquesting yourselves, conquesting everything around you. And as you do, because you have dominion that God has given you because of your self-control, your ability to retain and be able to transmute that energy into positive force, the super force that you have, no matter what age you are. I'm 63 and I feel like I'm 30, 35 and ready to go every day. And it's only been over the last 4 or 5 years now that I've done the NoFap and all the monk mode that I feel this way because of God's giving me blessings, enlightenment to be able to know this. So I'm passing this on, no monetary reward at all. I just want to make sure that get it out there so that young people can see this and people with my age as well can see this, to try to better themselves and become high value males that we need to keep the society going, because I am concerned about that. Let's go ahead and do some shout outs here as we go through. Mxchael III, thank you, my friend. Karemp, 9 months, keep it up, pal, thank you. Ed Romero, 3 years, great job, keep it up, my friend. JHP, Kongo 185, thank you. Jon the Dawn, as usual, thank you, John. JoJoAces, as usual, 106 days, keep it up. Saint Renaissance, thank you. Nathan Darby, thank you. Radioear, very good. MKwhole, thank you. Monroe, thank you. Petermakwuah 4294, thank you. Kongo 6042, thank you. IGOR, thank you. NanoMach1nes Son, thank you. The book is called Kedler's Fountain of Youth. I think you were asking about that. It's a great book. I try to mention to every video if I can. That's the book I started back in 1998 and had great success, but I never followed the last right, which should have been the one I probably should have followed right away. But that was the one with retaining, and I didn't realize the power of what he was really saying in there. The fountain of youth really is your semen, and the more you retain that, the better off you are. Dermot Hynes, too, thank you. Krotz N8U, thank you. Emmet, AMETLFAO, thank you. Jennings, thank you, my friend. User, thank you. Maltzmanly, thank you. Amarchosenone, thank you. Giodude 82. Ollie 0791, thank you. King Kong, thank you. 47 Rokuw W2, thank you, my friend. And VG Anxiety, thank you too. All right, so the 3-minute mark here, we're kind of talking about the a topic by Spiritus 5581. We're talking about mentioning living in another dimension while you're doing semen retention. And I would agree with this, so it kind of gives me an idea about talking about a topic here that we should probably look at, because the idea, warriors, is that you're not living in this world. Now, I say that, and don't think that we're kind of all kind of cracking up with this. But the idea is that there is a spiritual world that we're dealing with. And when you're talking about living in this world, which the Bible talks about, those are people that are buying into, and they don't have any doubts, and they don't question at all what is happening in the society. And for many years, that was me. That was many years, probably many of us who are older were in that category. We believed what we saw, right? Now, I've had some doubts. I grew up and I was about 2 years old when John F. Kennedy got killed, and I have always felt like there's more to that story, as same with Martin Luther King, and the same with Robert Kennedy, the same with, all kinds of people that have been shot and different events have happened. But, you go living through, as you're growing up, believing everything you see. TV is very credible. The people, we had somebody named Walter Cronkite, some of you guys may remember, very reputable. If he said it, it must be true. All these things happen on TV, the media, and as we got more into social media and everything, people tend to believe what they see because they think what they're seeing is real. But when you really examine everything, And you can see this now more when people start talking about, is the news real? All that stuff going on that we see every day. We see something like this happening. You question what you're seeing is real. And having years of studying and teaching communications and teaching, film and media in different places, I came to realize that a lot of things were made up. That it looks like it is, but it's a lot of things are an illusion to attract people, to get people to pay attention. And all you gotta do is look at Facebook, TikTok, and you can see that. You go back even to the old radio back in the 1940s, where we had World of Worlds, and Orson Welles was able to convince many people in the audience that the aliens were attacking in 1940. And a lot of that was the fear because of the war possibility and all of that. And so when you create that war, that fear people have, this is one of the ways to get people to motivate them and move. I've taught classes in persuasion and manipulation, in colleges and high schools over the years. And so it's easy to go ahead and persuade people. And so we have lots of people in this society, and only the 1%, which is why we call it the pro 1%, are starting to see that some of the old philosophies, going back to Egypt and different types of things where people are keeping their nutrients inside and they're not shooting them out and then throwing them away for no reason, unless they're going to procreate, that those people are starting to realize that everything they see is not true, and they're starting to think. You have societies that are starting to give some thought to things, and they're rejecting things that they're seeing. And this, in my opinion, is a very good thing, because people are starting to critically think about things that they see and not just taking what people see at a face value. And this is why we talk about the fact that there's lots of people who live in this world. But if you look at the biblical teachings, and the one, obviously I look at the most is the Bible, because that's the one that I adhere to, I see that we're not supposed to be living of this world. So when you see not living in this world, what are we talking about? Well, it took a long time, but I kind of figured out, especially when my, mother and father passed away, I saw that body sitting there was no longer them. There was nothing that was in that soul or spirit, and that disappeared, right? And so when you see that, you realize that as we go back to the physics and Newton's laws, everything is made up of matter. And everything doesn't get destroyed, doesn't get created, it just moves, transfers to something else. It creates something else. So something left those bodies, and those bodies starting to disintegrate, but that something moved. And so when you look at that, you can call it a spirit. I call it spirit. You can call it energy. You can call it anything you want to call it. But there's something else there besides the physical things we see. And in fact, those other things make things move. And so therefore, if you follow the logic, there has to be other things there besides the physical things we see. And because of that, we have to make sure that we understand that we were created and that we will go at some point to somewhere else, okay? And therefore, you're going to try to live the best life that you can. And a big part of that is understanding your creator and understanding that you're living in a spiritual world. And the more people understand that, the more they realize that they become more peaceful and happier, and they become more with their creator and God, the more they leave behind all those physical desires and things that they need. And this is why we talk about the fact, and talks about in the New Testament, it's hard for a rich person who has all these things and can get all these pleasures and doing those things, they live a life of pleasure. It's hard for that person to go to heaven. It's like a needle in a haystack trying to find it. Because that person has all these things around them that are the physical, temporal world that's temporary. But they feel that's happiness as compared to the other people who live from the inside out, who understand how important God is and their creator is, and all those things don't matter. So can you imagine two different people here? One person who's wealthy, lives their whole life for money and power and those type of things. They have to make a switch at some point when they realize none of that stuff really matters and it's all just temporary, right? Someone else will take their estate over, someone else will take their money, and they can't bury them with them, and even they could, they can't even use it. But the people who have the true peace and happiness are the ones who basically have fought the inner battle and fought the self-control battle and realized how important it is to be able to follow God's purposes and to be able to retain God inside them. And I truly believe that as people release all the time, they're letting part of God go within themselves. And the whole key to happiness is leaving behind all those physical things and being able to hold on to God in the forms that God's given you, the temple, the body that he has given you. And that means then holding on to and retaining your seed, your energy, and transmuting that into other things to follow God's purposes. So we live in a different dimension, as Spiritus says, because what we're doing is focusing on things a higher level than the temporal, material things that we see in front of us. And as you leave more of those behind, now this seems kind of impossible for people, right? Can you imagine ever leaving, your money behind, your cars behind, all those type of things, right? People when they're younger, especially in their 20s, and I've had this experience, they thought that was life. The American dream, which is wonderful in many regards, but it's temporal. If you really think about it, everything is temporal that you have in the world. If you're living in the world, it's going to be temporal. But people will tell you it's really happiness, you made it to the top. You can't have everybody at the top, right? So all these people who want to show off a lavish life of great food, great places, all the designer clothes that they have, all the fancy cars they have, all the fancy people that they have, all the people they have slept with, all these other things, all this is an illusion, is what I've kind of discovered after all these years. And what is real is the relationship you have within yourself with God. And so what ends up happening then is all those people, and I've seen it over and over again, the money, whether it stays with them or not, they're not happy. They have a lot of illnesses, problems, especially if they're not retaining. They have a lot of problems with stress and depression. They're taking pills. I think 1 out of every 4 women is taking pills or something like that I read at some point. And it doesn't surprise me. There's a lot of people out there that have issues, and a lot of it goes back to me for a lot of lascivious, self-centered behaviors. And now they're paying the consequences of all those behaviors. When you sleep around with everybody, that's not a good thing. People will tell you, oh, that's great, there's no consequences with it. Of course there's consequences with it. The person may not want to accept it, but if they're kind of having multiple partners and they're releasing all the time, who's going to have any kind of relationship with that person to begin with? And secondly, you don't want to get any kind of diseases and things. You never know what's happening with that person, right? And that person's slowly dying within themselves. They don't realize it. And luckily, the people that we are talking with and us, we've kind of realized this, and we see what's happening. We go back to the history of all the famous people who were retainers in long periods of time and successful, And of course they had kids, so they released at times. Some of them had kids, so they released, of course. But they didn't get lustful, they didn't go into sin. They basically handled it the way, and then they went back to celibacy and went back to their work, and they went back to transmuting it, right? God is someone who understands that if you're following God, God will show you the way. Your Creator will show you the way. So this is why we talk about the fact that it's important to establish that relationship with your God. All these other things will follow. And the best way you can do that, in my opinion, besides praying, there's lots of people that go to church, there's lots of people who do those things, but not everybody has that close relationship. What's one of the best ways to have the relationship? In my mind, is to retain. Now, why do I say that? The reason why you're living in a different dimension is because most of us have not retained, and we struggle with retaining. And as we start leaving behind all those physical things, especially the energy, and we keep it inside of ourselves instead of leaving it, now you're connecting at a different level, a different dimension, a different spiritual world. Because now you're connecting with God. And this is the whole idea that is the big lie that Satan's giving you. This lie that Satan and the world is giving you, with all the minions that are out there, are telling you, have as much sex as you want, release as much. In fact, it's going to be really healthy for you, and you're going to be very close to God when you do that. How many people do you know, warriors, that have multiple partners and is very close to the Lord, their Lord? I don't know, but I would have a guess that it's very small. If you have people who are doing all these behaviors, drinking, alcohol, they're probably not very close to their Lord. They may not even go to church. And though church is not the main thing, even though it's a great thing to do, they may not believe in God. In fact, what ends up happening, as the people start sleeping more with people, in my opinion, what happens is they get further and further away from God, and they become like Pharaoh was with Moses, harden the hearts, and now they can't see God through anything. And so they continue these behaviors, and all of a sudden they get into more crazy stuff, right? And I've seen these cases when you go back and look at people on OnlyFans, and you look at people who get into a lot of deviant behaviors, because people can't just stand, once they see something, they need more adrenaline and more. And so they're paying big money to see more deviant behaviors. And all this stuff occurs behind the scenes. When it ends up, it destroys the people, right? And all you got to do is look at the people who are in these industries that have killed themselves, or they've been killed in one way or the other, right? And all you got to do is see that to recognize the fact that yeah, it's great to have money. It's almost like being in the gangs or being in any kind of underworld or anything like that. You know, you're making sacrifices, right? You may get some money, you may get things, but it may cost you a lot. It may cost your life at some point. A lot of people, it's hard when they're in these businesses, especially we're talking about those things, to get out of it. And they find out, oh, it's great to make money and to display themselves and be an exhibitionist, but in the long run, no one's going to want to be with you, right? No one in their right mind is going to want to have any kind of relationship when all these other guys are looking at the person and having a girl like that. That's not going to happen unless they're the biggest simp in the world, which that woman's not going to have any respect for that person anyway. So the whole key, guys, is to realize that you've got to move past all of those things. And when you're 20 years old, 25 years old, that's not easy. Because your whole basis, everybody's telling you that the world is based on material things. The world is based on physical things. And to have a great life, you have to have a big house, big cars, lots of families, a beautiful wife or a beautiful husband. And you got to have that American dream. Well, the American dream is only so good if inside you're happy. And the happiness and peace doesn't come from any of those things. As God said, if you want to go to heaven, leave everything behind and follow me. What that means to me is leave all the possessions behind, leave all the physical stuff behind, and basically realize that you are moving into a different dimension with God, and now you don't need those things. And so women look more like your brothers, your sisters, and your mother, and sticks and bones. You're not really excited about them at all, and you can have conversations, and they're interesting people, but that's about it. You know, lust anymore. There's no desire to have drugs. There's no desire to have any kind of gambling. The excitement is not there because you left it behind, and that's the key. All right, my friends, so thank you, Spiritus 5581, for that great topic. We're going to try to do weeding out tempting women by refusing to sleep with them tomorrow or next day. That's got God's Gladiator gave us a good one, and we got some good ones coming up as well. So we'll talk about these in the future. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm going to try to do another live stream, but we'll probably wait till September because we're so hectic with things going on here. My year of business working is starting and all that kind of stuff. So we'll probably do one in September, but I'll let you guys know when we do that. And in the meantime, I'm going to leave you guys with two things. First, every day is a great day to a new warrior. I said it backwards, but you know what I'm talking about. And second thing, my friends, warriors, we have to continue to battle with this devil, realizing every day is a battle. That's why I always say we need to get the clarion call and call it like it is. Battle on! Have a great night, my friends. Take care.